Maya had always thought she was different from everyone else. At 28, she worked at one of the biggest tech companies in the city, creating smart computer programs that could think and learn. While her coworkers talked about their weekend, dates and relationship problems, Maya would just shake her head and smile. She believed she had figured out something they hadn't, that love was just a distraction. Every morning Maya would arrive at the office exactly at 8. Her desk was perfectly organized. Her coffee cup always sat in the same spot. Her co-workers knew her as the smartest person in the room, but also the coldest. She could solve any technical problem, but when someone needed a shoulder to cry on, Maya would suggest they see a therapist instead. The company Maya worked for was trying to build computers that could understand human feelings. It was a big project, and everyone was excited about it. But Maya found it all quite silly. Why would anyone want a computer to feel emotions when emotions just made everything complicated? One Tuesday morning, the whole team gathered in the main conference room. The walls were covered with charts and diagrams showing how human brains work when people fall in love. Maya sat in her usual spot at the back, arms crossed, watching her colleagues get excited about something she considered pointless. Their team leader, James, stood at the front of the room. He was the kind of person who remembered everyone's birthdays and asked about their families. Maya respected his work but found his emotional approach to management unnecessary. James had been trying for months to get Maya more involved in the human emotion part of their project. We need to understand how people really connect with each other, James said, pointing to a brain scan on the screen. Our computers need to recognize when someone is truly in love, not just attracted to someone. Maya rolled her eyes. She had heard this speech before. The room was full of her coworkers, nodding and taking notes. As if understanding love was the most important thing in the world, Maya, James called out, knowing she would have thoughts on this. What do you think about this approach? Maya stood up slowly, looking around the room at her colleagues. These were smart people, engineers, programmers, researchers, yet here they were, acting like teenagers, talking about their first crush. I think we're wasting our time, Maya said, her voice calm but firm. We're trying to teach machines something that doesn't even make sense for humans. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at her. Maya was known for being direct, but this seemed harsh even for her. What do you mean? James asked, genuinely curious about her perspective. Maya walked to the front of the room. She had everyone's attention now, which was exactly where she liked to be. She grabbed a marker and started drawing on the whiteboard. Look at the data, she said, drawing a simple graph. People who claim to be in love make terrible decisions. They ignore red flags. They waste money. They compromise their goals. They become dependent on another person for their happiness. Co-workers shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Some of them were married. Others were in long-term relationships. Maya's words felt like a personal attack. But Maya, said Lisa, one of the junior developers, don't you think love makes people happy? My husband and I, that's exactly my point, Maya interrupted, turning back to face the room. You just proved what I'm saying. You need another person to complete you. That's not evolution, that's weakness. The room was completely silent now. Maya could see the shock on people's faces, but she wasn't done yet. We don't love like you do, Maya continued, her voice getting stronger. Some of us have evolved beyond that primitive need for connection. We don't need another person to validate our existence or make us feel complete. James looked uncomfortable. He had known Maya was independent, but he had never heard her talk like this before. Maya, I think you might be oversimplifying, am I? Maya challenged him. Show me one piece of evidence that romantic love makes people more productive, more successful, or more rational. You can't, because it doesn't exist. Maya walked back to her seat, feeling satisfied with her speech. She had made her point clearly, and she was sure her logical arguments were unbeatable. But as she sat down, she noticed James looking at her with something she couldn't quite identify. It wasn't anger or frustration. It was something softer, almost like he felt sorry for her. I think we should take a short break, James said quietly. When we come back, let's focus on the technical aspects of the project. As everyone filed out of the room, Maya stayed in her seat, organizing her notes. She was proud of herself for speaking up. Someone needed to bring some logic to this emotional chaos. James walked over to her desk. Maya expected him to argue with her or maybe even criticize her for being too harsh. Instead, he just stood there for a moment. Maya, he said finally, I hope someday you get to experience what the rest of us are talking about. He said it so gently that Maya looked up, surprised. There was no judgment in his voice, no anger, just genuine kindness. I don't need to experience it, Maya replied, though something about his tone made her feel slightly unsure. I can observe it objectively. James smiled, a sad kind of smile. Sometimes the most important things can't be understood from the outside. He walked away, leaving Maya alone in the conference room. She stared at the brain scans still displayed on the screen, showing the patterns of neural activity when people fell in love. The data was actually quite beautiful, she had to admit, complex and intricate, like the most sophisticated computer program she had ever seen. For just a moment, Maya wondered what it would feel like to have her brain light up like that. Then she shook her head, packed up her things, and went back to her desk to work on something that made sense, code that followed logical rules and produced predictable results. Maya had no idea that in just a few months, everything she had said in that conference room would come back to haunt her. She had no idea that the very person she had just dismissed would become the most important person in her world. And she definitely had no idea that her brain would soon be lighting up in ways that would make those scans look simple. But for now, Maya was confident in her beliefs. Love was for other people, weaker people who hadn't figured out how to be complete on their own. She was different, and she was proud of that difference. She had no idea how wrong she was about to be. 3 months had passed since Maya's bold speech in the conference room. She had almost forgotten about it, busy with her work and proud of her organized, emotion-free life. Every day followed the same pattern. Wake up at 6, gym for an hour, work until 8, dinner alone while reading technical journals, then sleep. It was perfect, predictable, and exactly how she liked it. Then her phone rang at 11:30 on a Thursday night. Maya stared at the screen, confused. Her younger brother Ryan's name flashed across it. Ryan never called the slate. He was in college, probably busy with parties and friends. Maya almost let it go to voicemail, but something made her answer. Ryan, it's really late. What's going on? There was silence on the other end, then a sound Maya had never heard from her brother. He was crying. Maya, Ryan's voice was shaky and small. I need to tell you something. I went to the doctor today because I've been feeling really tired lately, and they found something. Maya's logical mind immediately started analyzing. Tired could mean many things: poor diet, not enough sleep, stress from school. What kind of something? They think it might be cancer. The word hit Maya like a punch to the stomach. Her perfectly organized world suddenly felt like it was spinning out of control. Cancer wasn't a problem she could solve with code or logic. It wasn't something she could analyze and fix. Are they sure? Maya heard herself asking, though her voice sounded strange and distant. They're doing more tests next week. Maya, I'm scared. For the first time in years, Maya didn't know what to say. Her brother needed comfort, needed someone to tell him everything would be okay. But Maya had spent so long avoiding emotions that she didn't know how to offer them. I'll drive down this weekend, Maya finally managed. We'll figure this out. After hanging up, Maya sat in her dark apartment, staring at the wall. She tried to apply her usual logical approach. Cancer had survival rate. Treatments had success percentages. But every time she started thinking about statistics, she would picture Ryan's face, and her chest would feel tight. The next morning at work, Maya couldn't concentrate. She kept making mistakes in her code, something that never happened. During the lunch break, she found herself sitting alone in the break room, staring at her untouched sandwich. You okay? Maya looked up to see James standing in the doorway. He had 2 cups of coffee in his hands and that same gentle expression he always wore. I'm fine, Maya said automatically, the way she always responded to personal questions. James didn't leave. Instead, he sat down across from her and pushed one of the coffee cups toward her. You don't look fine. You've been distracted all morning. Maya wanted to tell him it was none of his business. She wanted to maintain the wall she had built around herself, but something about the way James was looking at her, not judging, not prying, just genuinely concerned, made her defenses crack just a little. My brother might be sick, she said quietly. James didn't immediately start offering advice or trying to fix the problem, which surprised Maya. Instead, he just nodded and waited for her to continue. He's only 22, he's supposed to be worried about exams and dates. Not ... Maya's voice trailed off. Not cancer, James finished gently. Maya looked at him, surprised. How did you know? Lucky guess. And the look on your face. James took a sip of his coffee. When do you find out more? Next week. I'm driving down to see him this weekend. That's good, he probably needs you there. Maya almost laughed. Me, I'm the last person anyone needs when they're scared. I don't do comfort and emotional support. Maybe you're better at it than you think. Over the next few days, James seemed to appear whenever Maya needed something. When she was too anxious to eat lunch, he would bring her a sandwich. When she stayed late trying to distract herself with work, he would quietly bring her coffee. He never made a big deal about it, never asked for thanks. He just showed up. The weekend trip to see Ryan was harder than Maya expected. Her usually energetic brother looked pale and tired. Seeing him in the hospital waiting room, looking so young and scared, broke something open in Maya's chest that she didn't even know existed. I keep thinking about all the things I haven't done yet, Ryan told her as they waited for his test results. I was going to study abroad next year. I wanted to learn how to surf. I've never even been in love. Maya wanted to tell him he was being dramatic, that he would be fine, that worrying was pointless. But looking at her brother's frightened face, those logical responses seemed cruel and useless. Instead, she reached over and took his hand. It was such a simple gesture, but it felt revolutionary for Maya. Then we'll make sure you get to do all those things, she said. When Maya returned to work on Monday, she felt like she was walking through fog. The test results wouldn't be ready for another few days, and the waiting was killing her. She had always prided herself on being in control, but now she felt completely helpless. James knocked on her office door around 3 in the afternoon. How did it go? Maya looked up from her computer screen where she had been staring at the same line of code for 20 minutes. We won't know anything until Wednesday. That must be really hard. Something about the way he said it so simple and understanding made Maya's carefully controlled emotions threaten to spill over. She felt tears starting to form in her eyes, which horrified her. Maya didn't cry, especially not at work. I should get back to this, she said quickly, looking back at her screen. But James didn't leave. He closed the door behind him and sat down in the chair across from her desk. Maya, it's okay to be scared. That simple sentence was Maya's undoing. All the fear and helplessness she had been trying to suppress came rushing to the surface. Before she knew it, she was crying, really. Crying for the first time in years. James didn't try to stop her or tell her everything would be okay. He just sat there quietly, letting her fall apart without judgment. When Maya finally looked up, her face red and puffy, she expected to see pity or discomfort. Instead, James was looking at her with something that looked almost like respect. I don't know how to do this, Maya whispered. I don't know how to be afraid. I don't know how to help him. I've spent so long thinking emotions were weakness that I don't know how to have them. Maybe, James said gently, emotions aren't the enemy you thought they were. As Maya sat there, mascara streaked down her cheeks and her perfect composure completely shattered, she realized something that scared her almost as much as Ryan's diagnosis. For the first time in her adult life, she wasn't facing a crisis alone. James was there, solid and steady and kind, and she was actually grateful for his presence. The thought terrified her, but it also felt like the first real thing she had experienced in years. The good news came on a Wednesday morning. Ryan's tests showed that what they had found was treatable, not the worst-case scenario Maya had been imagining. But even with this relief, something inside Maya had changed. The walls she had built around her heart had developed cracks, and she didn't know how to fix them. What scared her most was how often she thought about James. During that terrible week of waiting, he had become her anchor. He brought her coffee every morning, sat with her during lunch breaks, and never once made her feel weak for being afraid. Maya caught herself looking forward to seeing him, and that realization terrified her. This wasn't part of her plan. Maya had her life figured out, career first, emotions never. But every time James smiled at her or asked how Ryan was doing, she felt something warm and confusing spreading through her chest. So Maya did what she always did when faced with a problem she couldn't solve. She ran away from it. On Friday afternoon, she marched into James's office with a determined expression. I think I need some time off from the emotion project, she announced. James looked up from his computer, surprised. Is everything okay? Is it about Ryan? No, Ryan's going to be fine. I just think I should focus on the technical side of things. The coding, the algorithms. That's where I'm most useful. James studied her face for a moment. Maya could see he wasn't buying her excuse, but he nodded anyway. If that's what you think is best, Maya felt a stab of disappointment that he didn't argue with her, which only proved her point. These emotions were dangerous and needed to be controlled. She threw herself into work with renewed intensity, staying late every night and coming in early every morning. She avoided the break room where James usually ate lunch and took different routes through the office so she wouldn't run into him accidentally. But avoiding James at work wasn't enough. Maya realized she needed to prove to herself that what she was feeling wasn't real or important. She needed to get back to her logical approach to relationships. That's when she remembered Kevin from the advanced programming team. Kevin was brilliant, analytical, and just as uninterested in emotional connections as Maya claimed to be. They had worked together on a few projects and had good professional chemistry. More importantly, Kevin would never make her feel the confusing things that James did. Maya asked Kevin out for coffee the following Monday. It was a logical choice to intelligent people who understood that relationships should be practical arrangements rather than emotional roller coasters. Their first date went exactly as Maya expected. They talked about work, discussed the latest developments in artificial intelligence, and analyzed the efficiency of different programming languages. Kevin was smart, successful, and completely safe. He would never challenge her emotionally or make her question her beliefs about love. "I think we make sense together," Kevin told her as they finished their coffee. "We have similar goals and compatible lifestyles." Maya nodded, feeling satisfied. This was how relationships should work: logical, practical, beneficial to both parties, no messy emotions, no vulnerability, no risk. They started dating regularly. Kevin would pick her up at exactly the agreed time, take her to restaurants he had researched for optimal nutrition and efficiency, and discuss topics that stimulated their intellects. It was everything Maya thought she wanted. But something strange started happening. The more time Maya spent with Kevin, the more she found herself thinking about James. When Kevin made calculated compliments about her intelligence, she remembered how James's genuine concern had made her feel. When Kevin analyzed the pros and cons of their relationship, she thought about how James had simply sat with her while she cried, asking for nothing in return. The worst part was that Kevin seemed to notice something was wrong with her focus. "You seem distracted lately," he mentioned during one of their dinner dates. "Are you having second thoughts about our arrangement?" Maya looked across the table at Kevin. He was exactly what she had ordered: smart, logical, emotionally unavailable. So why did she feel so empty when she was with him? "No, I'm just dealing with some family stuff," Maya lied. But the truth was becoming harder to ignore. Every morning when she walked into the office and saw James talking with their coworkers, her heart would skip a beat every time he smiled at someone else the way he used to smile at her. She felt a pang of something that might have been jealousy. Maya tried to convince herself that these feelings were just chemical reactions. She researched the neuroscience of attraction, reading papers about dopamine and oxytocin. She told herself that what she was experiencing was just biology, nothing more meaningful than hunger or thirst. But her research only made things worse. The more she learned about the science of love, the more she realized that what she felt for James matched every description she read. Her brain was doing exactly what those brain scans in the conference room had shown, lighting up in patterns she had once dismissed as primitive and pointless. The breaking point came during a company meeting 3 weeks after she had started dating Kevin. Maya was sitting in the back row, trying to focus on the quarterly reports, when James started presenting their team's progress on the emotion recognition project. "We've made significant advances in helping our AI understand genuine human connection," James was saying. "The key breakthrough came from understanding that emotions aren't obstacles to clear thinking, they're actually a form of intelligence." Maya felt like he was speaking directly to her, even though she knew he wasn't. Every word seemed to challenge the beliefs she had held so tightly. When our AI can recognize not just what people are feeling, but why those feelings matter, it becomes infinitely more effective at helping them, James continued. "Emotions provide context that pure logic can't capture." After the meeting, Maya found herself walking slowly back to her desk, James's words echoing in her head. She sat down and stared at her computer screen, but instead of seeing code, she saw James's face the day she had cried in her office. She remembered how his presence had made her feel less alone in her fear. That evening, Kevin took her to a highly rated restaurant he had selected based on online reviews and nutritional data. As he explained his systematic approach to choosing their meal, Maya realized she couldn't remember a single thing they had talked about on any of their dates. Their conversations felt like well-organized meetings rather than connections between two people. "Kevin," Maya interrupted him mid-sentence about the restaurant's efficiency ratings. "Yes." Maya looked across the table at this perfectly logical man who should have been everything she wanted. "Do you ever think about me when I'm not here?" Kevin paused, considering the question with the same analytical approach he used for everything. "I think about our scheduled activities and how our partnership benefits my long-term goals. But do you miss me?" Kevin looked confused by the question. Missing someone is an inefficient emotional response to temporary separation. Maya stared. at him, and for the first time, she heard her own words from months ago reflected back at her. This was exactly how she used to think, exactly how she used to talk. Kevin was like looking in a mirror, and Maya finally understood why James had looked at her with such sadness that day in the conference room. "I need to go," Maya said suddenly, standing up from the table. "But we haven't ordered yet. I had a systematic plan for this evening." Maya looked down at Kevin, still sitting calmly at the table, and realized that what she was feeling wasn't love or even attraction. It was recognition. Kevin was exactly who she used to be, smart, successful, and completely missing the point of what it meant to be human. "I'm sorry, Kevin, this isn't working." As Maya walked out of the restaurant, leaving behind her safe, logical choice, she finally admitted what she had been fighting for weeks. She wasn't in love with Kevin, she was in love with James, and that terrifying realization changed everything. Maya spent the entire weekend after breaking up with Kevin pacing around her apartment like a caged animal. She had finally admitted to herself that she was in love with James, but she had no idea what to do about it. How do you tell someone, "You've spent months avoiding that you've completely changed your mind about everything you once believed"? Monday morning came too soon. Maya sat in her car in the office parking lot for 10 minutes, trying to work up the courage to go inside. She had no plan, no logical strategy for handling this situation. For someone who had built her entire life around having control, this felt like jumping off a cliff. The universe, however, had other plans. Maya, her manager, Laura, called out as soon as she walked through the office doors. "Perfect timing. I need you and James to represent our team at the company retreat this weekend. It's a leadership development thing up in the mountains." Maya's heart stopped. A weekend retreat, with James, in the mountains, away from the safety of their office routine and daily distractions. "I'm not really leadership material," Maya said quickly. "Maybe someone else, don't be silly. You're one of our best problem solvers, and James specifically requested you as his partner for the team exercises." Maya felt her cheeks burn. James had requested her, after weeks of her avoiding him and acting strange. "It'll be good for you," Laura continued. "Fresh air, team building, no phones or laptops, just 3 days of getting to know your colleagues as people instead of job titles." The retreat was being held at a mountain lodge 2 hours outside the city. Maya packed her bag with the same methodical approach she used for everything, but her hands were shaking as she folded her clothes. 3 days with James. 3 days where she couldn't hide behind work or avoid him in the hallways. Friday afternoon, Maya found herself sitting in James's car as they drove up the winding mountain road. The silence between them felt different. From their usual comfortable quiet, Maya could feel James glancing at her occasionally, and she wondered if he could sense how nervous she was. "How's Ryan doing?" James asked finally. "Better, much better. He starts treatment next month, but the doctors are really optimistic. I'm glad you were so worried about him." Maya looked out the window at the trees rushing past. "Thank you for being there during all that. I know I wasn't exactly easy to deal with." James was quiet for a moment. "You don't have to thank me for caring about you, Maya." The simple honesty in his voice made Maya's chest tight. This was why she had been running from him. James had a way of saying things that cut straight through all her defenses. The lodge was beautiful, all wooden beams and stone fireplaces, surrounded by tall pine trees and mountain views. Their group was small, just 12 people from different departments, and they were staying in cozy cabins scattered around the property. Maya's heart sank when she saw the room assignments. She and James were paired up for the weekend activities, which meant they would be spending even more time together than she had expected. The first day of activities was designed to push people out of their comfort zones. Maya found herself climbing with James, belaying her, both of them laughing as she struggled to find her footing on the artificial wall. Then there was the trust exercise where she had to fall backward, knowing James would catch her. "I've got you," James said quietly. As Maya stood at the edge of the platform, her whole body tense with fear. "What if you don't? Then we both fall down together." Maya closed her eyes and let herself fall. James's strong arms caught her perfectly, and for a moment they stayed like that, her back pressed against his chest, his arms wrapped around her. Maya could feel his heartbeat against her shoulder blade, and the sensation made her dizzy. That evening, the group gathered around a campfire for dinner. Maya found herself sitting next to James on a log, watching the flames dance and listening to her coworkers share stories about their lives outside of work. She learned that Quiet Lisa from accounting had climbed Mount Whitney last summer, and that Tom from IT wrote poetry in his spare time. "What about you, Maya?" asked Rita from marketing. "What do you do when you're not solving impossible coding problems?" Maya realized she didn't have a good answer. Her life outside of work was just ... more work. Reading technical journals, organizing her apartment, going to the gym with the same routine every day. I guess I'm still figuring that out, Maya said. Honestly, later that night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about James catching her during the trust fall, about the way his voice had sounded when he said he had her. She finally gave up on sleep and stepped outside her cabin for some fresh air. The mountain night was beautiful, stars everywhere, the air crisp and clean. Maya had never been much of a nature person, but something about being away from the city made her feel different. Less anxious, less controlled. Can't sleep either. Maya turned to see James walking toward her from his cabin next door. He was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, and Maya realized she had never seen him look so relaxed. Too quiet, Maya said. I'm used to city noise. James came to stand beside her, both of them looking up at the stars. It's beautiful though. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, and Maya found herself stealing glances at James's profile in the moonlight. He looked peaceful, content in a way she rarely saw at work. James, Maya said suddenly, the words coming out before she could stop them. I owe you an apology. For what? For the way I've been acting. For avoiding you. For being ... weird. James turned to look at her. Maya, you don't owe me anything. I know things have been hard with Ryan, and it's not about Ryan, Maya interrupted. Well, it is, but it's more than that. She took a deep breath, feeling like she was about to jump off another cliff. This one much scarier than any trust exercise. That day in the conference room, when I said we don't love like other people do, I was wrong. I wasn't evolved or superior. I was just scared. James didn't say anything, just waited for her to continue. And these past few weeks, I've been trying so hard to prove to myself that I was right. That emotions are weakness and logic is everything. But I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop remembering how you were there for me when Ryan was sick, how you never made me feel stupid for falling apart. Maya's voice was shaking now, but she pressed on. I think I'm in love with you, and that terrifies me because I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be vulnerable or trust someone with my heart. James was quiet for so long that Maya started to panic. Had she ruined everything? Had she misread all the signals? Finally, James reached over and took her hand. His fingers were warm and steady, and Maya felt some of her fear melt away. Maya, he said softly, I've been waiting for you to figure this out. I've been in love with you since about a week after you gave that speech about not needing love. Watching you try so hard to prove you didn't need anyone just made me want to show you how wrong you were. Maya stared at him in shock. But I was so awful to you. So cold and distant. James smiled, and even in the moonlight, Maya could see the warmth in his eyes. You were scared. There's a difference. Before Maya could overthink it, before her logical brain could interfere, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft and tentative at first, but when James kissed her back, Maya felt something inside her chest explode with warmth and light. When they finally broke apart, Maya was crying, but this time they were happy tears. I don't know how to do this, she whispered against his lips. Neither do I, James whispered back, but we can figure it out together. Standing there under the mountain stars, Maya finally understood what all those brain scans had been trying to show her. Love wasn't a weakness or a distraction. It was the most powerful force she had ever experienced, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't trying to fight it. 6 months later, Maya stood in front of a mirror in the hotel bathroom, adjusting her blazer for the 3rd time. Today was the biggest presentation of her career, the International Conference on Artificial Intelligence, and she was about to share their breakthrough research with some of the smartest people in the world. But that wasn't what was making her nervous. Maya had decided to do something that would have been impossible for the old version of herself. She was going to tell the truth about how their research had really succeeded, and that truth involved admitting she had been completely wrong about love. You ready for this? James appeared in the doorway, looking handsome in his navy suit. Even after 6 months together, Maya still felt that little flutter in her stomach when she saw him. Define ready, Maya said, turning away from the mirror. I'm about to tell a room full of researchers that I learned more about human emotion from falling in love than from years of studying brain scans. James walked over and straightened her collar gently, a gesture so natural and caring that it still amazed Maya how much comfort she found in simple touches. You're going to be brilliant, he said. You always are. Maya had been dreading this presentation for weeks, but now, looking into James's encouraging eyes, she felt something she had never experienced before: a big speech. Excitement instead of just determination. The conference hall was packed with hundreds of researchers, engineers, and tech executives. Maya had presented to large audiences before, but this time felt different. This time, she wasn't just sharing data, she was sharing her story. "Good morning," Maya began, her voice steady and clear. "6 months ago, I stood in front of my team and said something I was absolutely certain was true. I said that some people have evolved beyond the need for love, that emotional connections were primitive and inefficient." A murmur went through the audience. Maya could see some confused faces, wondering where this was going. I was wrong. Not just a little wrong, completely, embarrassingly, life-changingly wrong. Maya clicked to her first slide, which showed brain scans from their latest AI emotion recognition system. "Our team has achieved a 94% accuracy rate in helping artificial intelligence recognize and respond to human emotions. But this breakthrough didn't come from better algorithms or faster computers. It came from understanding something I had been missing my entire career." She clicked to the next slide, showing before and after images of neural activity pattern. "These are brain scans of the same person, me taken 6 months apart. The first image shows my brain patterns when I was what I called emotionally efficient. The second shows my brain activity after I fell in love. The difference was dramatic. The second image showed complex networks of activity, connections lighting up across multiple regions of the brain. What we discovered is that love doesn't make us stupid, it makes us smarter. When humans form deep, emotional connections, our brains develop new neural pathways that enhance empathy, improve problem solving, and increase our ability to understand complex social situations." Maya felt her confidence growing as she shared their findings. This was still science, still research, but now it was science that meant something personal to her. Our AI systems weren't failing because they were too logical, they were failing because they weren't logical enough to understand that emotions are actually a sophisticated form of intelligence. She clicked to a video showing their new AI in action, successfully navigating complex human interactions that had stumped previous systems. "When we programmed our AI to recognize that love, fear, joy, and grief are all valuable data points rather than obstacles to clear thinking, everything changed. Our systems became infinitely more effective at helping people." Maya paused, looking out at the audience. She could see people leaning forward, genuinely interested in where this was going. But the most important discovery wasn't about artificial intelligence at all, it was about human intelligence. "I learned that I had been operating at a fraction of my potential because I was ignoring half of what makes humans remarkable." She clicked to her final slide, a photo of her and James at Ryan's graduation ceremony the month before. Ryan looked healthy and happy, his arm around both of them. "This is my brother Ryan. 6 months ago when he got sick, I realized that all my logical analysis and emotional distance meant nothing when someone I loved was in pain. It was my colleague James who showed me that caring about people doesn't make you weak, it makes you human." Maya took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been building up to. "I want to publicly correct something I said 6 months ago. I claimed that we don't love like you do, implying that some people are above such primitive emotions. The truth is, I wasn't above love. I was just afraid of it, and that fear was limiting not just my personal life, but my professional capabilities as well." The audience was completely silent now. Maya could see James in the front row, smiling at her with such pride and love that she felt her heart expand. Love isn't the opposite of intelligence, it's intelligence applied to what matters most. When we allow ourselves to care deeply about people, we don't become less logical. We become more motivated to use our logic in service of something meaningful. Maya clicked off her presentation and looked out at the audience. "Our AI systems succeeded when we taught them that emotions provide context, not confusion. As humans, we succeed when we learn the same lesson." The applause started slowly, then built into something thunderous. People were standing up, and Maya could see genuine enthusiasm on faces throughout the audience. But the only face she really cared about was James's, beaming at her from the front row. After the presentation, Maya was surrounded by researchers wanting to know more about their methods, but she kept finding herself looking over at James, who was patiently waiting for her to finish. Later that evening, they walked along the beach near their hotel, Maya's heels dangling from her fingers as they stepped through the sand. "So, James said, taking her hand, "any regrets about going public with our story?" Maya thought about it seriously. 6 months ago, she would have been horrified at the idea of sharing personal details in a professional setting, but now it felt like the most honest thing she had ever done. None, she said. Although I still can't believe I used to think love was a weakness. Well, James said, stopping to face her, you were working with limited data. Maya laughed. Even now, James could make her smile with his gentle humor. I've been thinking, Maya said, looking up at the stars reflected in the ocean. Remember when you said that sometimes the most important things can't be understood from the outside? I remember used to think I could observe love objectively, like a scientist studying lab rats. But love isn't something you can understand by watching other people experience it. It's like trying to understand music by reading about sound waves. James squeezed her hand, and now Maya smiled, thinking about how much her life had changed. Her relationship with Ryan was deeper than it had ever been. Her work was more meaningful because she understood what she was really trying to accomplish, helping AI systems serve human needs better. And every day with James felt like discovering new parts of herself she hadn't known existed. Now I know that the most sophisticated intelligence system in the universe is a human heart that's learned how to love without fear, Maya said. And I'm finally smart enough to be grateful I figured that out. As they walked back toward the hotel, Maya reflected on her journey from emotional isolation to deep connection. She had thought she was protecting herself by avoiding love, but she had actually been limiting herself. The woman who had stood in that conference room 6 months ago, declaring herself above human emotion, felt like a stranger now. Maya had learned that true intelligence wasn't about being above human feelings, it was about being brave enough to feel them fully and use them wisely. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she was finally living up to her potential as both a scientist and a human being.